Tight.
Okay, ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. This is the first episode of my podcast called Stirring the Pot, where we discuss everything policy related. So today we are going to be speaking about environmental justice. And the ladies that we have today is Miss Brionte. She believes in a healthier, more vibrant future for all people and the planet. She's dedicated to teaching people how to self-organize and build strategic partnerships to protect the environment, advance racial equity, and grow civic engagement. She currently serves as the executive director of the Georgia Conservation Voters, where she works to secure a more just and sustainable future by advancing climate and environmental justice policies, electing pro-environment candidates, and holding elected officials accountable for their actions and votes. Brionte earned a Bachelor's of Science in Public Policy from Georgia State, and she minored in Spanish. Welcome, Brionte. Also joining us is Miss Cornnetta from Georgia One. She's their operations manager. Cornnetta is a humanitarian and an entrepreneur on the rise. She is the farm liaison at Aluma Farm, AmeriCorps Vista alumni, an activist against wrongful imprisonment, a longtime member of Peoplestown Revitalization Corporation, and finds joy in educating her community on the importance of fresh, affordable food access. Cornnetta has a degree of applied science and biology and a certification in human resources. She's also a poet and writer and the owner of Odyssey of CA. All right, welcome her. Next, we have Miss Raven Imani. She's a social media content creator for Georgia One. She's a native of Atlanta, Georgia. Currently, she attends the illustrious Clark Atlanta University and majors in theater arts. Raven's favorite musical is the classic Grease. She binge watches new TV shows, and rewatching episodes of Glee with good food is her favorite pastime. She's an ATL girl at heart. She loves lemon pepper wet wings and living amongst all the history that Atlanta brings. She plans to have her own film studio and win multiple Grammys. Raven knows that life can be hard sometimes. Therefore, a quote that she lives by is "Laugh now, cry later" by Dre. All right, ladies, how are you doing today?
Good. How you doing today?
All right, I'm good. So we're just gonna jump right in. Miss Brionte, how do you see the intersection between environmental justice and the revitalization plans for Thomasville Heights, especially in the context of Forest Cove?
That's really interesting. So I'm not super familiar with Thomasville Heights as a neighborhood, so I'm going to go ahead and say that up front. And I am following, to some degree, what's happening with Forest Cove, sort of the, getting rid of the units that were there, the displacement of the residents, the question about, what will be built, how it will be built, if they're going to be able to come back. So I've been seeing a few things about that. But what I think is really important is really, I'm just going to go back really quickly to the vision of our organization, which is everybody has the right to breathe clean air, drink clean water, and eat healthy food, and live in an environment that's free from harm. And unfortunately, when we create communities where the air is cleaner and the water is cleaner and there is access to healthy food, what happens is the price of that community goes up, and the people who were living in that community before get displaced. And so it really is a challenge in pushing for more sustainable development and pushing for these sustainable communities, that we're not increasing the cost of housing and accelerating the displacement of people, which we've seen happen over and over again, not just in the country, but also in Atlanta. There are very clear cases in point of what is being referred to as environmental gentrification, right? Using green infrastructure, using, going in and sort of making communities greener as a catalyst for displacement. And so those are my thoughts. We want to make sure that if we're building these sustainable communities, that they're not just for wealthy white people, because then where will people of color go? They're going to go into communities that are, be displaced further away from where they were before, and still have those same negative health outcomes, those same negative impacts that they're experiencing. So we can't displace people and only build communities that work for people who can afford them, which are likely to be white people.
Right. So how do you think that these issues could be addressed?
It's a really good question. Actually, I was on a panel earlier this week about this. Wilding, y'all, be wilding. I don't know why people give me the mic. But I really feel like there are solutions already that we act like we don't know exist. There's a lot of policymakers, elected officials that pretend that they don't know what the solutions are when they're quite clear. And so one of the biggest solutions is zoning, right? We need to zone communities appropriately, and we need to zone them proactively. Unfortunately, what happens is we wait until the developer already has control of the land, and then we're like, oh, they're going to do what? And then we're fighting and we're upset, but it's too late. What's really important is the zoning is in place that encourages density, which is necessary to get lower cost multifamily housing. And there's a lot of people fighting density across the city, right? So we've got to go ahead and proactively rezone these places. And then in addition, we need to have policies in place like the inclusionary zoning ordinance. The city of Atlanta does have some inclusionary zoning which requires that a certain number of units be affordable for people making lower than the area medium income, so AMI. And unfortunately, AMI is actually quite high, right? It's still pretty high. So we really need to increase or be more aggressive with that inclusionary zoning so that it's affordable for people making a lot less than the annual median income. Not every unit, but some units. So we have a policy in place. That policy came later than we wanted. There were a lot of development projects that all happened, and the policy sort of came in after the fact, right? So it doesn't really apply to those developers. And also my other thing is we really need to look at tax breaks, right? Developers come in, they get tax breaks left and right. There was a really good article in Atlanta Civic Circle, which is a local journalism publication run by my friend Saba Long, but they went into talking about all the tax breaks that developers get. Why are we giving them tax breaks? Why are we leaving money on the table that could be used to help the people in the city of Atlanta? I think if you're getting a tax break, then you need to show me what you're doing for community. You need to show me how you're, keeping units affordable for people to be able to stay in place. So there's a lot of tools the city has at its disposal. I just don't think that they're proactive enough, they're not aggressive enough, and they come in a little bit too late. And so, the solutions are already there.
So as someone that's passionate about civic engagement, how do you believe that community and local residents can help reshape Thomas Heights and other places that are like Thomas Heights?
I think it's really important, and I know that this is a challenge, so I'm not going to minimize how challenging this is. It's really important that people show up. It's really important that people assert themselves in this process. There's a lot of apathy in the community for civic engagement. We talk a lot about voting, but civic engagement is even worse because some people at least come out to vote. But going to these public meetings, going to your neighborhood planning unit, going to the city council meetings, but especially the committee meetings, which are even more under the radar, right? Constantly being that voice, being loud, being persistent is really important for being able to influence decision making. Because when you're not at the table, the decisions get made for you, right? And I get that people.
Wait, can you say it one more time, please?
Yeah.
Way in the back.
For the people in the back, when you are not at the table, the decisions get made for you. There are people there speaking on your behalf, and sometimes they don't know you. They don't know what you're going through. They don't know your challenges. You are an expert. Your voice matters. You need to be at that table. You need to be assertive. Don't be intimidated by people coming into these meetings in suits, using technical terms and fancy titles. You have lived experience that is much more valuable and deserves to be heard. And I know you're tired. I know you've been working all day. I know you got kids to feed and dogs to take out and all kinds of things that prevent us from wanting to do that extra thing, to go to that extra meeting at night. But if you can work with your community, work with your friends, work with your family, to be able to go to these meetings, prioritize, and bring your kids with you so that they can learn, right? That's what's really important, is being engaged when these decisions, when these conversations are being had, these decisions are being made. That's the most important thing you can do. And if you can't go to these meetings, because sometimes they're inconvenient, look, again, 7 p.m. at night, who? Me? Not me. I get it. Then try to have a meaningful relationship with your elected official. We talk a lot about voting, but what's more powerful is your elected official knowing your name, because they've seen you. Go to their community events. Go to their community giveaways where they're trying to look good and give people stuff, right? Cutting ribbons, all right? Let them know who you are. Let them know what their struggles are. So you don't always have to go to the community meeting. Just show up where your elected official is and make sure that they know you and they know what you're going through, so that you can keep that in mind, because sometimes it's that one conversation that they have that completely changes how they act on an issue. So never underestimate the power that you have.
Okay. So given your expertise, what broader challenges in housing and environmental justice do you feel like needs to be addressed?
So I already talked about, when we green communities, displacement. I think the next challenge I've been really chewing on is the quality of housing for people, lower income people. Oftentimes when we build affordable housing, we build it quickly and cheaply. It's low quality housing. The air quality's bad, your power bills are high because your housing is inefficient. We really are trying to figure out how to make sure that we're building green, affordable housing. We're putting solar panels on those roofs to help reduce those costs. We're making sure it's as efficient as possible so you're not spending money on energy that could have been saved in the first place, right? I was at the state capitol earlier this year fighting a bill from the American Petroleum Institute, which, it's the American Vinyl Institute, but the vinyl is plastic, plastic is oil, it's the petroleum institute, it's the oil industry. And they were fighting, all of these local jurisdictions who put in all these building codes, these green building codes, right? Making sure that buildings are EV ready, making sure they're efficient, making sure they're built with high quality materials like brick instead of plastic vinyl. And these developers are saying, oh, this is driving up the cost of housing, this is about making housing more affordable. Okay, but we use cheap products like vinyl. Guess what that housing is now? It's also flammable. Y'all remember La Vista Road? That just happened. What happened to those apartments? Lit up, took out, just displaced all these people because this apartment was thrown up so cheaply and so poorly. Those units caught fire so quickly. They shouldn't have done that if they were built to a higher quality. So we can't just be, cutting corners to build, I call it slum housing, right? Just slum housing, flammable, cheap, that's going to make people sick. And so, there's a rhetoric with developers saying that stuff costs money to build it better. And I think that's smoke and mirrors. But that's, to me, the bigger challenge, the broader challenge is getting enough units, getting density, but also making sure that we're building it to quality and that we're undercutting these claims by developers that's what's driving the price of housing up.
And can I say something real quick? And I just want to kind of chime in on that part, because we were at this Harambe House conference earlier in the year, and one of the speakers was saying how developers have a sick obsession with building. And just to your point, hold the developers accountable. And if you go to some of these community meetings or NPUs, they have to come and get your permission to put certain things. They have to come to get permits. So yeah, it's important what you're saying.
Thoughts, Raven?
Oh my gosh, I was listening to you because I was learning a lot right now, because I never thought about zoning, what you were saying about zoning. I never even thought about that, so I'm listening and learning right now. It's a lot.
It is. So, considering you being the executive director at Georgia Conservation Voters, how do you envision the relationship between local government, community organizations, and environmental advocacy groups in achieving a more just and sustainable future in the context of Thomasville Heights and places alike?
That's a good question. So what makes democracy work are all of those things. It's government. Democracy doesn't work without nonprofit organizations, right? You need civic engagement organizations sort of filling the gaps for people, because one thing is that, for us to be a democracy, we receive very little information about how to be an active citizen in America, right? Oh, go vote! Okay, and then you show up at the polls,
So yeah,
and there's like
you just log in, put whatever, open up whatever, open it and set it up. This is where you record your sound. This is where you use to switch cameras or have sound effects.
11th Circuit Jet. I just threw a whole bunch of stuff
These
together.
soundboards are way
The point
better
is,
now,
we don't really have good civic education in America. You
And it
probably have
only
your
sits
work
up to 4
classes,
people.
and they need you
It's
to
kind of
direct
recommended.
government.
You can have up to 5 to 6.
Right, exactly.
Have
People
5 or
just,
6 people.
skate through that class and then move
So
on
if
with
you
their
need
lives.
anything extra,
And then they get into the real world and they're paying bills and they're paying taxes and they're navigating all of these challenges in life, and they don't understand who's making these decisions, why this stuff is the way that it is, who they need to talk
all
to
the
get it
content all at
changed.
one time.
And so
it's
it's
like a
really
live
important
podcast. It's
that,
a live podcast, right?
nonprofit
Yes, it's a
organizations,
live
civic
podcast.
yeah,
engagement
it's streaming to
organizations
Instagram and
exist
Facebook
to
as
help
well.
fill those gaps for people, to help them navigate all this bureaucracy, right, that exists to really shut down and minimize the influence of everyday people in local government decision making. And let me be clear, like your local government, the smaller the government is, the more powerful it is, right? We always look at the president and what's going on with the senators. Shout out to Warnock and Ossoff doing the thing up in D.C. I'm very happy about them doing work, and then our congressional people, but we know very little about our state representatives, our state senators, our city council people, our mayors, our county commissioners, right? The smaller the government is, the more impact they have on your life. And so, we try to help people who are experiencing issues that in their everyday lives, and they don't know where to go, and we help connect the dots for them. And I'm gonna give you a really quick example. The power bills, okay? I know you don't know these power bills are going up nonstop. Well, guess what? There's some elected officials behind that. Everybody in the state of Georgia gets to vote for public service commissioners. They are statewide elected positions. There's 5 of them. They're currently all Republican. That commission is over 100 years old. It's been all white male Republican nearly for 100 years, right? People don't vote in this race. The turnout at the top of the ticket versus that race is always dramatically different. We got hundreds of thousands and sometimes millions more people voting for president, senate, whatever, and then you get down to the local stuff and the drop-off is insane, right? And so people are saying, hey, look, I got really high power bills. What is Biden going to do about it? Well, guess what? Biden can't really do a whole lot about the cost of your power bills. But who can do something? These commissioners. They can do something about it. And so people don't know the connection between the bill that they're paying and the fact that these public service commissioners regulate Georgia Power. And they allow Georgia Power to raise your bills multiple times a year, every year. They are voting and approving these rate increases and saying they're doing it for you because you're not there. So it's important that we have environmental advocacy groups, civic engagement groups who are able to connect the dots with the citizens and the local government and the decision makers in these environmental problems that are showing up at the door.
There's also like the willingness to learn as well. They have to be willing to want that gap to be filled. And so something I've always wondered, like how do you get somebody to want to learn if you can't change anybody's mind, but how do we fill that gap when they don't want to fill that gap with us?
It's a good question. Can I answer what you answered? Okay. So it's not everybody's going to want to learn. Let's put it that way, right? There are 300 some odd million people in the United States, okay? Everybody ain't about to learn, okay? It just is what it is. Love people. Also, attention spans have been decimated over the past few decades, okay? But I once read in this book, I forget the name of the book, but I remember the author was Erica Chenoweth, and it was about movement building. And there's this rule, the 3.5% rule. You only need 3.5% of a population to be mobilized to make change. So 3.5% of 300 million, right? So if we're looking at the city of Atlanta, there's only about 250,000 people in Atlanta, so 3.5% of that. Great. So you don't need to move everybody. You just need to move some people. And some people do want that information. But how you message around it matters, right? You don't come into communities like, hey, climate change. People are gonna be like, I have bills to pay. What are you talking about? You have to talk about what is the most pressing for people, and I can tell you what the most pressing things are. Jobs, economy, healthcare. Every survey, every election cycle, we do these polls of the public, we ask what's important to them. Every year, without fail, jobs, economy, health. Why? Because this is about my survival. This is about me living life on this planet. Everything else comes second to my ability to provide for myself and my family. Everything else comes second. So you gotta make sure you're making the connection to those things. We don't talk about the Public Service Commission and burning fossil fuels and climate change at the doors. We talk about power bills.
Yeah, and just to touch to that point too, just making every experience personable. Like, when I've had the chance to speak to the PSC, a lot of your colleagues and your team members were there, and I like just talking about food, for instance. And I stressed the importance of like our seniors not being able to afford a pack of chicken, but we are going towards the fourth rate hike from Georgia Power in 1 year. So like just stuff like that, like when you can take a power bill to somebody and show them the difference in something like that so simple, they'll get it, you know.
Yeah, message to what matters, and then make it fun. Legitimately make it fun. I think a lot of advocacy is just all about, hey, we're being oppressed, like come protest, come comment, come, you know, and that sounds like a lot of work. And some people,
Yeah.
right, some people will be motivated by that. Some people want to do that.
Yeah.
I honestly was motivated by the revolutionary mindset, you know, with the Angela Davis and all that. You know, that was exciting for me. But then after so many years, it kind of started to really, this is a lot, this is hard to keep being in this like revolutionary mode all the time. So what I've been challenging my team and others in the movement to do is let's make stuff fun. Let's do a twerk fest in front of Mitch McConnell's house, right? Like, you know, that happened. I didn't do that. I'm not taking credit for that. Other people in Georgia, other beautiful organizers came up with that idea. And guess what? People came out to twerk in front of Mitch McConnell's house. And it was political, right? It was. Yes. This guy was the Speaker of the House. He was holding stuff up, but we made it fun, right? So also make it fun, right? That's what I'm impressing upon everybody doing work, is make it as fun as possible.
I also think that people don't know where to start. Like you said, okay, so Georgia Power, our bills are going up, and a person will, let's go boycott Georgia Power. Let's go out and protest Georgia Power. But really, the people behind that is, like you said, the commissioners. So I think that we have to have a clear understanding of where to start. It's like a person having an issue with their plumbing and they're irate and going crazy on the electrician. I mean, he can't do anything. It's
know before you vote. Get to know local government, because they govern your laws right at home. You know, like, oh my gosh, like I remember talking to, I don't know if it was a friend or a family member, but they were like just complaining about how their car insurance is so high, you know, the hotel fees, and they have to stay other places so high. But when it's time to vote, and I'm calling like, hey, we doing the, you know, picking up people to go vote, or we, you know, out knocking doors, they don't want to go vote. And something so simple like that, like, makes a difference. Like, everybody, a lot of times, I can't say everybody, but a lot of people will go out for presidential elections. But we just had local elections, literally a few weeks ago, and nobody, you know what I'm saying? But those are the people that are making the laws for where you live. You know what I'm saying? So, like, when people that they say, oh, this just the Green Boys, like on Major Payne movie. I started moving, it's on the Green Boys again, you know. But like, no, it's so much deeper than that. Go to your local elections. Like, our students matter, our seniors. Like, you know what I'm saying? They just, the in between people, they just want you to work. You know what I'm saying? So know who you are, who is in these seats locally. Like, that's so important.
And of course, you know, it's purposely push the presidential election is purposely pushed.
Right.
They want you to just focus on the president so
Yeah.
that you can hear all about the locals.
Yeah.
Everybody believes the president got all this power, and they just don't. They just
Right.
don't.
And it felt like where to start, just start somewhere. Like really just start somewhere. I mean, there isn't a clean place, because people always ask me, what's the one thing I can do? It's a lot of things you can do. I mean, there's a lot, right? So just jump in and be open-minded and learn as you go. Ask questions. If you don't understand something, ask questions, and you'll be surprised what you find out. I think we have a society that's just, I know we have a society focused on instant gratification. We want things to be one and done, easy, simple. I just need to check a box and move on. That's not how civic engagement works, right? It really is a commitment to being engaged, to learning. So show up, go to a city council meeting, come out to an organization, events, right? You know, whatever it is, but just start, just dig in and find community. You know, if you notice that people are doing some really cool stuff, plug in with them and follow them. If that ain't your crowd, move on, find another crowd, right? I mean, you know, there's a lot of work to be done out here on any of these issues. You can engage a million different ways, but it's all about finding the right people, the right community for you, and the issue that you care the most about, right? Some people really want to do water stuff, right? I want to work on lead pipes in schools. Great. There's a spot for that. I don't care about that. I care about electric vehicles or transit access. Great. There's people doing that. Well, I just care about housing. Great. There's people doing that. Well, all I want to do is do art. Well, we need artists to create murals and to help us tell stories. Well, I just want to go make some money. Great. We need people to start green businesses and to operate sustainably, right? This is a mindset. It's a movement. It's a lifestyle. It's about how we live life on this planet. So don't think there's any right or wrong place to start. Just get started. Lean in. Ask questions. I mean, we're all figuring out how to live life on this planet differently in real time together for our survival. So just lean into that.
And be non-biased too, because that can, if you're you know, we all in this space, and you know sometimes people can be very judgmental and excremental. You know, they can be unapproachable, you know, and for people that really don't know about these things or understand it, that can be off-putting for them, and it can keep them away. So if you approach it in a non-biased way, in a non-judgmental way, that will bring more people out too, you know, and help them to understand why, you know, like you said, community meetings and all this type of stuff is important, you know.
Yeah.
So, Cornnetta, what do you do outside of work that promotes environmental justice?
So definitely like I'm an old person. I'm right there. I love to write. Community meetings. Definitely attending community meetings. Going to the PSC. Going to City Hall. Like I literally do those things. I started out working in a Luma farm back in 2017, 2018, and like I used to do this summer meals program, and I was teaching like doing some garden education with kids and doing some farm to table stuff, just little stuff like that though, just figuring out places in your community that's doing something that you may know a little about but you're not as familiar with, and then seeing how you draw, you know, others. By them seeing that like this is most of the people at the farm did not look like me, you know what I'm saying, skin color wise. So them just being there made a difference, you know what I'm saying. And then like when it was like 2 or 3 kids that was in the community coming, and they're like, oh, like I understand why carrots, you know, are good for my eyesight, you know what I'm saying? And just different little things like that. So next week I got 10 more kids coming to the program, you know. So just like little things like that, getting involved with whatever's going on in the community, going to local farms, because it's good to eat within a 50-mile radius anyway, you know, where you live. So, just things like that, getting involved in everything that's going on in the community and holding stakeholders accountable too. Like, you know, a lot of times I used to participate in a lot of community things with my mom and grandma, and I didn't want to back then, but, you know, growing up I found out how important it was. But I also saw a lot of groups that didn't look like me come use our faces our input, our info, do surveys, questionnaires. Once the project was over, we didn't see them anymore. And so things like that. And so that also made me want to be like, hey, how can I help my community? And do what these people have done or brought us, but be it ongoing. So yeah, just gauging people that way and participating, showing up.
Now, Raven, what does environmental justice mean to you?
So for me, environmental justice is having everybody have access to clean air and water, regardless of background, skin color, income. Everybody deserves to have access to clean water, clean environment. So that's what it means for me. You want to go deeper? that's pretty much what it means for me. It's as clear as that. Everybody having access to clean water and air. Clear as that.
Okay. So, who or what and how did you become inspired to do this type of work?
So for me, my mom, like I said, like I was on and grew up in Peoplestown community for majority of my childhood, and there was the Save the Ambassadors Club, and I was 13. I never forget. Mom was like, it was the summertime. I didn't want to get up and go to no meetings, nothing like that. She was like, well, instead of going to camp this year, be a part of this. I ended up being one of like the leaders there. We got to go to this conference. It was a conference for preventing crime in black neighborhoods. And so, and I'm a poet, so I was able to like win a contest, just like about stuff that I'm, thinking about what I see in my community and seeing how certain communities like they have, water drainage for their mailboxes, flower, gardens around it. Like that protects flood zones, right? So like just look, I'm like a teenager, preteen, but I'm thinking about stuff that I see in other communities that I didn't see in mine. So that made me like, okay, my mom was on to something. Then and my grandma and Maddie, my friend who told me about Georgia One, and my executive director Kim Scott. Like she is leadership and representation really matters. And I worked in different spaces, but being around a leader that actually live, work, and play with what she do, she believe in it. I see her in the fight, not just telling me about the fight, but actually, gloves on with me and the community. Like that makes a difference. So yeah, those people inspire me the most with this type of work.
Shout out to Mom and Kim.
Yeah, before I even got into this first, she was taking the community meetings. So she was like, no, you're coming with me.
So she was one of the people who inspired you?
Yeah, for sure.
Brionte, what about you? What or who inspired you to do this type of work?
It's a good question because I feel like it's over the years, right? They just add layers, add on, like I grew up, my grandma was always saying, hey, like turn the lights off, like we will be sitting in the dark.
Yes.
We will be sitting in the dark. Those words have been burned into my mind and will never go away. And that was, she was talking about environmental injustice, right? The cost of these bills, turning off the lights, right? Trying to save as much as possible because even a few dollars made a difference in, whether or not we were going to be able to get through that month, right? So just little seeds like that would get planted. I lived in the Mojave Desert when I was a kid out in California. My mom was in the military, Air Force, and so we were on a base, and at the time I didn't understand, all the trees I saw were like little tiny little things held up by sticks, and all these sprinkler systems, like OMG, why did we have lawns in the desert? It made no sense, Wow. But then moving to Georgia, and I really was just blown away because I had never seen a tree that was not supported by sticks or a sprinkler system. And then there was a forest of them. They were everywhere that I could see. I remember being just blown away, wow, this is beautiful, right? This is amazing. And so that really, was another big turning point. But also, I realized when I got to Georgia was that there were racial differences. Didn't really see it when I was on a military base. It was quite diverse. It was, very much a microcosm community. Wasn't connected to the outside community. So I come to Georgia and we go off the base and we're just in community and everything was black and white super fast. It was black folks here, white people there, everybody else, other places. And what was really telling for me was that there were expectations for me and my behavior because I was black. And I thought that a lot of the things that people assumed about me were unfair. It was unjust. And so Georgia woke up two things: a love for the environment and also a love for people, and a deep sense of like everybody has a right to thrive. Everybody has a right to be successful and to be a whole human being and not be put into these little boxes that unfortunately have very real impact on the outcomes in our lives. So I would say that Georgia really planted the seed that became the environmental activist and also the dismantler of racism that I am today.
So speaking of injustices, what environmental injustices exist in your community?
So for me, like, once I finished 35, different things started happening. And I, like, my asthma, like, got worse. Like, I live downtown now.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw, like, wow, like the railroads running through the community, different industrial plants and factories and stuff like that, like stuff you don't really think that's down there, or you just see it, like the Coca-Cola building, for instance. I live in right downtown. Almost 7 where exactly I live on there. But like you see all this stuff and you're not thinking like, hey, the smoke that's coming out, it's bothering me. You know, but now it's like my breathing and different stuff with my asthma has been triggered so much being downtown. Mm-hmm. So just like that right there, like I can really elaborate more, but just that like air, like it's something so simple that a lot of people take for granted, but being able to breathe, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'll start with that one.
Can I go back to that?
Yes.
I got two things I want to say about that. I was on the phone with one of my team members who lives in Macon, Georgia, and she said that she was reeling from a community death. It was a young woman, just got in her 30s, thriving. She died of an asthma attack. She didn't make it. She flatlined, twice, they couldn't bring her back. One of the things that she didn't know until I told her on the phone was that there's a power plant just north of Macon, Georgia. It's Plant Shear, partially owned by Georgia Power.
Yep.
It used to be the nation's largest carbon emitting coal plant. It used to be. Now it's still in the top. There's other, but it's still in the top, right? It's like it's not the number one anymore, but it's still high in the list. That's air pollution, right? This community was breathing in pollution from that carbon, the carbon dioxide from that coal plant for decades, right? So much pollution. That pollution is not just spreading in that community. That pollution is spreading all over the country. That's how much that was emitting. And so, you know, this woman dying of an asthma attack, it's like this is a very real example of the connection between environmental injustice and public health, right? And then also the real lived experience of losing people you love to something like asthma, which they want to make about you.
Yeah.
It's not about you. It's about things in the community. And then I wanted to add to that I saw this permit, the Georgia Environmental Protection Division approves permits for industries that are coming in to pollute, just to pollute. And this permit was asking for permission for this company to come in and spew out all of these toxic chemicals into the air. Basically, it's a treatment for logs. They want to treat these logs. It's a pesticide, but it's going to release all of this pollution in the air. Hundreds of thousands of tons of pollution that they know cause cancer. Wow. And they're asking for permission to do it. And the thing is this is part of the process. The company comes in, they ask for a permit, they publish the notification in the newspaper somewhere and on the website. They wait for public comment. There's not a lot of people that do public comment because who's checking the EPD website after work? Nobody. Who's looking at page 17 of the newspaper? Nobody. And then they'll be like, oh, well, nobody had any opposition, so we'll just grant them the permit. Why are we giving companies permission to put out air pollution? They said, the application literally said they were going to not do anything at all to try to treat it. That's what, we want to put this out
and
with no
mitigation.
No way, we're not even going to try to make it better. This just came across my desk. And, you know, this is the type of thing that just pisses me off because we know they're going to get the permit and the community around them are lower income people, which includes white people, it's not just POC. and black folks, which doesn't matter how much money they make.
And to that point, a lot of times when people hear, oh, justice, they automatically think low income or black people. Like, no, anything dealing with the environment includes Mother Earth and those who inhabit it.
Right.
When we say environmental justice, you're right, people think it's only low-income black people, only, or low-income Latino people, only. But what we have found is that low-income, no matter what your race is, poor white people are also on the front lines of environmental injustice. This is what MLK was talking about, the Poor People's Campaign right before he was murdered. So I want to be really clear that this is not just a POC issue, that low-income white people are also impacted. And then we've also found out that when you're a person of color, when you are black, it doesn't matter how much money you make.
Right.
Even wealthy black communities are more exposed to pollution, right? So it is people of color and low-income people, not just the intersection of those two.
Yes.
So,
It's good stuff, y'all.
it is. Now, moving on. How do environmental issues disproportionately impact communities with high poverty? Raven.
Oh, repeat that one more time.
How do environmental issues disproportionately impact communities with high poverty?
I just want to make sure, because I want to make sure I get the right answer.
How do environmental issues disproportionately impact communities with high poverty?
I feel like it's everything that we've been saying. So, before I come to the answer, it's like my executive director, Kim Scott, she always says that environmental justice is the new civil rights.
Meaning what?
So the fight for environmental justice, like I was saying, is not just for people of color. It's for people who live in low-income areas. So I have a hard time expressing what I'm trying to say.
You're speaking from the soul. You said I want to give you the right answer. There is no right answer.
Yeah, I
Your
want to give you the right
experience
answer.
is an answer. Your experience is an answer.
So, yeah, our fight for environmental justice is like losing civil rights, because a lot of people have been, it's like almost like, for me, it's like the new racism, if that makes sense. Like, that's what I was trying to say it without saying it. It's almost like the new racism.
Yeah.
And so I feel like a lot of these big corporate companies, they try to hide behind that. And that's why we've been getting the short end of the stick. If that answers your question. So.
And if I could chime in a little bit, it's like poverty makes you vulnerable and subject to more things that, sometimes people that, this is a capitalistic society, so if you don't have capital, meaning money, what I'm talking about right now, you might not be able to get certain resources, so if you're poverty stricken, you're struggling, you know what I'm saying, it's just certain needs that aren't met, so you're vulnerable to more things, and that's, that's what I want to put in there.
I feel like that's our whole thing. Like, I feel like nobody should be vulnerable to more health issues. Nobody should wonder whether they want to pay their gas bill or groceries this month. That's the whole thing about it, and yeah, that's my whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. I was gonna say, like, when you're a lower income household, you don't have as many resources to deal with these problems as wealthier households. Like, let's say I'm a rich white person and I find out that there's air pollution in my community. What do you think I'm gonna do? I'm gonna look. I got money.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look at a house somewhere else that isn't right down the street from this thing polluting me, right? When you're low income, you don't have that ability to just pick up and move, right? We all know that one of the biggest examples of environmental injustice was Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, right? Communities were warned well in advance that this storm was coming, right? And people made the decision to stay, and there's a lot of criticism. Why did they stay? They were told to leave. do I got money to like get in my car and go somewhere else and get a
Do I have a
hotel
car?
and wait? Do
Right.
I have a
Or
car?
do I have a car?
Right? These folks did not have access to the resources needed to, protect themselves from what was happening, right? And then they're getting sick, and then they're getting cancer, and they got asthma, then that's another cost on top of everything, They don't got the money, now they got to fight between medical bills, food, power bills, right? And then they're stressed, and then stress is a killer, right? Stress is already, so it's just these layers that just add up that make it harder for poor people to just get ahead in life. If they're living in older communities, the pipes are lead. They're drinking lead poisoning. Flip is an example, right? What does lead do to the brain? What does it do to your brain development, your decision making, right? It makes everything harder. So it's like layers on top of layers on top of layers when you're a poor person trying to get ahead in life.
Touch on Flip.
Yeah, I mean, Flip, to me...
Councilman Mays. Shout out to Councilman Eric Mays.
Hey, yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Flip was crazy. I mean, that was a choice, right, that some elected official made to switch the water source from, I forget what the original water source is, to the river instead. And the water quality from the river had a chemical reaction with these outdated pipes, these lead pipes, right? That was what was going on. So they were using water from one source, they switched to another source, and it had this chemical impact that basically activated all this lead that people started drinking and were getting poisoned and sickened by. They knew that was happening, the people that made the decision, right? They knew that that was going to be the case. They were warned, and they said, you know what, we don't care. We don't care. And there was an uproar. It did get caught. There was national attention on this. They did address the problem. Those folks did have accountability. They did go to jail. Some of them did. And that's, to me, an example of environmental justice, people actually getting justice for the consequences that these folks had for making that decision. But the point is there was a decision made. The community was not consulted. They found out who was going to impact, mostly low-income people, economies, and they didn't care. And then on the back end, there was accountability, right? There was accountability. Plant had to clean that shit up. People went to, that stuff up. They had to clean that stuff up, and the people went to jail. So,
It's very sly.
yeah.
That's literally what it was.
Right.
Sugar, honey, iced tea.
Right, exactly. So I really think that, Clinton is an example of what happens when you cut a community out of a decision making, and also what accountability looks like.
Right.
But every environmental injustice isn't going to be a Flint, right? There isn't going to be a news story. There isn't going to be a national outrage. And then also the consequences, like some of the community got a settlement, but it wasn't a lot, right? These are lifelong impacts from consuming lead that people are now going to have to live with. And yeah, they got more money, but was it enough? It wasn't enough. And so...
and a lot of times when they do give them like a settlement or something, they got to move from their community. Now you can't even be, you know what I'm saying? There might have been a home for you, for your family, grandchildren, children, all that kind of stuff. So layers.
Right, because a lot of black wealth in particular is tied up in property, right? So if the property values in Flint just down, way down after this became a national scandal, right? Nobody wants to move to Flint. What did that do to the property value that people, count as part of their wealth? Again, mostly black folks, a lot of our wealth is tied up in our homes.
Probably part of the reason why they let it happen, like the accountability part, because they know who would be mostly affected by it. A lot of this stuff is planned out. They know what they're doing.
So, ladies, this is a group question. How do we ensure that everyone has a voice in the conversation?
Encourage open dialogue, actively listen. I'm going to say this time. Yes, and then, like I said in the beginning, respecting different viewpoints, not being judgmental, being unbiased, because, what is going on in one particular neighbor or community member household or their life might not be your story or situation, but you all are affected by some of the same things. So just, listen, encourage people, to come out, and let them also be included. Inclusivity is so important. Like a lot of people say inclusion, but they don't really include you. It's just like, what is this? What is I'm trying to say? Gosh, it just
It's almost like when you was at school, you had to invite the whole class, but you don't really want to invite the whole class. It's almost what it's like.
And people feel that, like a lot of times people that are like really affected by some of these. I'm not saying that we all aren't, but it's different degrees to things sometimes. They'll know when you don't really want them there. You know what I'm saying? Energy is real. All of that stuff. So be inclusive, and respect other people's viewpoints.
I wanna say that people need to. There's a lot of like, well, I don't know, and so what I have to say doesn't matter. I can't tell you how much I hear that in the community. Like, your experience matters. Let me tell you things I don't know, right? I don't know what it's like to not have housing. I've always been housed, right? When someone comes in talking about homelessness, I am not an expert. I have never. The guys on the corner across the street are far more experts on homelessness than I am, right? Because they've had that lived experience, right? That's just one example of where someone would look at me and go, oh, she's smart, she knows more than I do. But there's a lot I don't know because I've never experienced it, I've never lived it. So I want people to know that your lived experience is super important, it's super valuable, So not being judgmental, not assuming people's lives, let them tell their own story and be open-minded to understanding what they've gone through, what they've been through. And I think that's really important for people's voices being in the room. Never be intimidated by not having the credentials.
Or people who appear that they know it all.
Right. There are people who go get law degrees who've never been just think about a wealthy person, a wealthy kid that grew up from wealth, right? Had money, had people cleaning up their house for them, cutting the grass for them, anything they needed, wanted was delivered. They go out, they go to college, somebody else is paying for their housing, they're able to be fully focused on their schoolwork, they go out and get 2011 degrees and a law degree, and they come out of college with all this education, but they don't have any lived experience. They haven't no real world experience. They don't know what it's like to have to get a job to pay their own bills. They don't know what it's like to, like I said, be houses. They don't know what it's like to live life like a lot of people have to live life. And now all of a sudden they're empowered with this degree and people think they know more.
Right.
They don't know nothing. They don't know anything at all. So, I really want to stress that part about your lived experience and it being valuable. And when you're listening to someone else's lived experience that's not your own, being open-minded instead of judgmental, right? Because we make a lot of policies based on the way we think the world should be, right? I know we're not talking about it, but there's a lot with abortion. It's a lot of judgment in that policy conversation, right? It's a lot of judgment about what people should and could and whatever be doing. We try to legislate based on this idealistic world of everybody having happy, healthy lives. That's not the way that people live life. That's not the way people experience, and they end up with a bad choice and a worse choice. And if you've never been in that position, how do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
How can you judge?
You can't even get in that position. How can you judge?
And that's exactly the point. So it's just, you've got to be open-minded and understanding and empathetic when you're having these conversations, when you're in community with people. It's as much about learning as it is about sharing your own experience.
It's guys continue to take up space. Continue to take up space and just having normal, everyday conversations.
Yeah, take up space, I like that. Yeah, no, don't let anybody make you feel like you can't take up space. You exist on this planet.
And you matter.
To take space.
It's like you said, we have solutions, we just don't have the people that care about the solutions. Just continue to take up space. Your voice definitely matters.
Well, I am very proud of you three ladies and the work that you do. It inspires me. I hope it inspires whoever is watching. and kind of help people understand what environmental justice is. Because honestly, I didn't know what it was until recently. So I'm just very proud of you ladies stepping and fighting the fight, and I'm with you, and I'm going to continue to fight and educate myself and put myself in these spaces to try to help close the gap.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
if you guys have anything you want to add or say, go ahead.
Just lean in, that's all I gotta say. Show up where you wanna show up, you know.
And to everyone that is listening, you matter. Like Raven said, take up space. You know, a lot of times, people that may not work in this space think that their opinion don't matter, like we've been saying all this session. But you matter. Your voice matters. We need you. And get out to vote and know before you vote. If you don't know the answers, just ask. Somebody will be ready and willing to assist you.
Familiarize yourself with your representative, with the local representative.
Yes.
I asked you guys know I'm the president of the Public Policy Club. I'm like, everybody, your task, tell me who your representative is in the area that you live. Let's meet them. Let's get to know them. Let's go. So we're planning some trips to the Capitol to meet some of the state representatives.
You can go to the Georgia Secretary of State. It used to be mvp.sos.ga.gov, but look up Georgia ballot lookup tool. But you know, just you can put your information in there and figure out where you live. There's always somebody in Norcross that thinks their mayor is Andre Diggins. Okay, it's not.
No.
Okay, it's not, bruh. It's not. So I think your first assignment is figure out where you actually live and who actually represents you. And try to find them, listen to them, you know, and have a relationship with them.
And like you said earlier, show up where they'll be.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
They're out there.
And oh gosh, I think a lot of I'm about to prolong it even more. But and this is just my opinion, this is not Georgia One's opinion. But I think a lot of the local politicians that we have are almost like a high school situation running for office, and it's a popularity contest, and they have forgotten about the people that they are serving. And with that being said, you know, sometimes you do need to know logistics as well, not just your personal feelings and experience, but logistics, you know, know some of the, like they say, these people's background, you know what they're doing, what they're voting for, what they're agreeing on, and what they are, like, you know, not agreeing on or taking away from us. Like, know these people, you know, get out there, because some of them really, it's just a popularity contest for whatever private motive that they may have. And this is what I'm saying. So, yeah.
100% true.
A lot of hidden agendas.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming, ladies. All right. Is that a wrap?
Thank you.
And you.
Hopefully they can edit out that little.
I hope not.
I hope not. Yeah.
But I do gotta run.
Yes, thank you,
Nice
Jen. Nice to see you again.
Thank
I always
you.
get to see you in all these other spaces, but this is a very intimate, and I appreciate that.
It's good to see y'all both here.
Yes,
I'm glad y'all
yes.
are working with Kim. She's
Yes.
been awesome since she's been in the space.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, she's been awesome before that. But
Yeah. Yes.
I wish I could stay in chat, but you know,
We'll see you soon.
like the way
Damn far. You gotta go by there.
Yeah, thank y'all. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, is it? Oh, Lord.
Okay, babe. Okay.
Bye.
And I'll send you what I got.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Let me get my phone.